All right. So 2 Chronicles chapter 25, lesson 63. This is Amaziah, king of Judah. So remember, yesterday we spent time in Israel with the second and third generations of Jehu sitting on the throne, Jehoahaz and Jehoash. Okay. Meanwhile, while they were ruling as king, we need to go back to Judah. Okay. Remember, Joash had been king for 40 plus years, and the end of it was not good. He did not walk in a way that was pleasing before the Lord, so much so that he was not buried with the kings of Judah. That says quite a bit. Okay? We saw yesterday too, Jehoash at the end, he only struck the ground 3 times with the arrows, and that's important, and it kind of connects a little bit to today, because during Jehoash's rule in Israel, he establishes a relationship here with the son of Joash, Amaziah, king of Judah. So, chapter 25 of 2 Chronicles, we'll read there. Amaziah was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Jehoaddan of Jerusalem. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, but not with a perfect heart. Now it came to pass, when the kingdom was established to him, that he slew his servants that had killed the king his father. But he slew not their children, but did as it is written in the law of the book of Moses, where the Lord commanded, saying, The father shall not die for the children, neither shall the children die for the fathers, but every man shall die for his own sin. Moreover, Amaziah gathered Judah together, and made them captains over thousands, and captains over hundreds, according to the houses of their fathers, throughout all Judah and Benjamin. And he numbered them from 20 years old and above, and found them 300,000 choice men, able to go forth to war, that could handle spear and shield. He hired also 100,000 mighty men of valor out of Israel, for 100 talents of silver. But there came a man of God to him, saying, O king, let not the army of Israel go with thee, for the Lord is not with Israel, to wit, with all the children of Ephraim. But if thou wilt go, do it. Be strong for the battle. God shall make thee fall before the enemy, for God hath power to help and to cast down. And Amaziah said to the man of God, But what shall we do for the 100 talents which I have given to the army of Israel? And the man of God answered, The Lord is able to give thee much more than this. Then Amaziah separated them, to wit, the army that was come to him out of Ephraim, to go home again. Wherefore their anger was greatly kindled against Judah, and they returned home in great anger. So if you remember, Joash was killed by his 2 servants, and when Amaziah becomes king, we read here the first thing that he does is he puts to death, he punishes those 2 men who had murdered his father. For no one has a right to kill the king unless the Lord orders them. Okay? But he did do something good. He did not kill their children, because that's what the law said. You may kill the father, but not the children, or you may kill the children, but not the father. Only punish the man who has committed the sins, and not the others. Okay? So he does right here, in a sense. He kills his father's murderers, but not their children. So he obeyed the Lord, but yet, as we read there, but he did not do it with a perfect heart. Now Amaziah was ready to go to war. So he sets up the house of Judah, so that, again, there's captains over thousands and captains over hundreds. And he does that in a military fashion, with a military purpose, so that he can find out how many men does he have who are ready, who are healthy, who are robust, who are able to carry a spear and a shield into battle with the enemy. Well, he finds out that number is 300,000 men. Amaziah determines on his own, without going to the Lord, it's not enough. He wants more. So what does he do? He knows that there are soldiers for hire in Israel. Mercenaries, we call them. These are men who love to fight. They love nothing more than to be out and get their adrenaline high out on the battlefield. They love to be that man in the arena who goes out there, is not afraid to die, and hopes to win great glory for himself and his family. And it's an easy way for some of them in their mind to make money, because not only do they get paid, but they probably get some of the spoils of the battle. So where does Amaziah go to find some of these men? He goes north to Israel, to the tribe of Ephraim, and there he finds 100,000 men who are willing to be paid to come and fight on his behalf. Okay? He gives them his money, and he hires them. And so these men come down to Judah, and they begin to muster together with the troops of Judah. And that's when God sends a prophet. The Lord sends a prophet to Amaziah. The prophet says, this is not right. The Lord is with the 300,000 men of Judah. Amaziah should know his history. He should know of the time of the judges when sometimes they would win with like one man, like Samson, over 1,000. Or just a few hundred soldiers, they would defeat a great enemy. Or sometimes not even needing any soldiers at all, or even fighting in a battle, God would defeat the enemy. Amaziah doesn't trust in that. So this prophet has to come to him and say, God is with the men of Judah, but he is not with those 100,000 men of Israel. Get rid of them. Send them back. They ought not to be with you. You ought not to fellowship one with another. And so what happens? The 100,000 men are sent back. Now when they're sent back, of course Amaziah has some questions for the prophet. I've paid them already. What do I do about the great loss of money? Amaziah says, don't worry about it. When you go to the battlefield, the Lord will give you more than that amount of money in the spoils that you're going to take from your enemies. Well, those 100,000 men, what do they love? Well, they love battle. They love fighting. They love killing and destroying and burning. And they were looking forward to the opportunity of going with Judah into battle against Judah's enemy nations around them. And now they've lost that opportunity, and we read, and we'll come back to that in a little bit, they left angry. They were not happy about that. But we'll leave that for now. But for now, we need to go and see how the battle goes with Amaziah. He's going to attack the nation of Edom with his 300,000 men. Verse 11, we'll pick up there. And Amaziah strengthened himself and led forth his people and went to the valley of Salt and smote the children of Seir 10,000. And other 10,000 left alive did the children of Judah carry away captive, and brought them unto the top of the rock and cast them down from the top of the rock, that they were broken in pieces. So that we don't see as a good thing. But they marched together, it says, into a valley of salt. So we think of salt as being something white. We can imagine white cliffs and white area all around. It's located there probably by the Dead Sea. You got some of that map work on your worksheet there, but the Dead Sea, which is full of salt, the saltiest sea on the face of this earth. And there it is that he kills 100,000 men, soldiers of Seir or Edom, and then they took another 10,000 captive, and they bring them to a high cliff in the city, and they throw them off the cliff so that they are dashed to pieces as they fall and crash down the cliff headlong to the bottom. Not probably the best way to defeat one's enemy, because you're making it even more gruesome and more grotesque. And God wanted them to destroy the enemy, but I don't think we can say that this was the way that it was to be done. God demands for killing that is not torture. If I have an animal that I need to kill, I need not torture it to death. The same goes for humans. If I'm in the battlefield and I need to kill my enemy, then I ought to kill him swiftly and quickly, off with his head, as they would say, or take him prisoner. But not torture and make it grotesque and fun. And that's the sin of what these men were doing. They were killing them in an evil and in a cruel and torturous, sinful way. It's wickedness to torture. So, immediately afterward, Amaziah took the idols of Edom, and he began to worship them. He didn't worship Baal here, but he worships these idols. He's godly. Well, when Amaziah returns, a good question comes up. The prophet of God meets him and he says, Why do you pray to these gods who couldn't even save their people? It was you and your God against the people of Edom and their God. You won the victory, and what do? You worship the losing God, who's not even a real God. You fool! Why would you do something like that? Amaziah gives a snarky, sneering answer. Who made you important? Have we made you important? The counselor king, get out of here. Oh, that prophet has one last word. Verse 16, towards the end of it. Then the prophet forbore and said, I know that God hath determined to destroy thee, because thou hast done this, and hast not hearkened unto my counsel. He will be put to death. Now, we need to go back to Judah, because those 100,000 soldiers of Judah, 100,000 soldiers of Israel are leaving. They're not leaving happily. And what do they do on the way out? Well, verse 13 gives us a little bit. But the soldiers of the army, which Amaziah sent back that they should not go with him to battle, fell upon the cities of Judah and upon Samaria and unto Beth-horon, and smote 3,000 of them, and took much spoil. So there we have the names of cities. But if you skip down to verses 17 to the end, we also learn, Then Amaziah, king of Judah, took advice and sent to Joash, the son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, king of Israel, saying, Come, let us see one another in the face. And Joash, king of Israel, sent to Amaziah, king of Judah, saying, The thistle that was in Lebanon sent to the cedar that was in Lebanon, saying, Give thy daughter to my son to wife. And there passed by a wild beast that was in Lebanon, and trode down the thistle. Thou sayest, Lo, thou hast smitten the Edomites, and thine heart lifteth thee up to boast. Abide now at home. Why shouldest thou meddle to thine hurt, that thou shouldest fall, even thou and Judah with thee? But Amaziah would not hear, for it came of God that he might deliver them into the hand of their enemies, because they sought after the gods of Edom. So Joash, king of Israel, went up, and they saw one another in the face, both he and Amaziah, king of Judah, at Beth-shemesh, which belongeth to Judah. And Judah was put to the worse before Israel, and they fled every man to his tent. And Joash, the king of Israel, took Amaziah, the king of Judah, the son of Joash, the son of Jehoahaz, at Beth-shemesh, and brought him to Jerusalem, and brake down the wall of Jerusalem from the gate Ephraim to the corner gate 400 cubits. And he took all the gold and the silver and all the vessels that were found in the house of God, with Obed-Edom, and the treasures of the king's house, the hostages also, and returned to Samaria. So, again, we learned something. Amaziah takes off with his 300,000 soldiers to go fight Edom, as we already saw. Meanwhile, the 100,000 soldiers of Israel, who now have to travel back, are not happy. Remember, we even talked about this in the Vietnam War, when they were all filled with all kinds of adrenaline. They were ready to go to battle. They were looking forward to it. And now the battlefield promise is gone to them. It's empty. I have to go back peacefully. I can't do anything. Bah, humbug. So the 100,000 soldiers of Israel, on their way back, they begin to vent their rage. They begin to destroy the cities of Judah along them on the road back. They begin to plunder them and steal everything. They killed 3,000 people, murdered them, because they were angry and upset. And so they destroyed 3,000 men and women of Judah on the way back home, while taking all kinds of treasures for themselves and destroying the cities of Judah. That does not make Amaziah happy when he returns after his battle, his victory with Edom. And Amaziah is not going to let it go unpunished. He calls for King Jehoash of Israel to come down and meet him so they can do battle. King Jehoash gives a warning. He says, King Amaziah, you are but a thistle, a little tiny weed on a narrow stem. That's all Judah is. Israel is a mighty cedar, huge, gigantic, strong, almost impossible to take down. You, being a thistle, are crushed by small animals in the forest passing by. Us, the great cedar, are crushed by no one. And if you want a battle, well, you're preposterous. Foolish. We will defeat you and crush you. Well, Amaziah would not listen because he is stubborn. And he wanted to defeat the enemy. He wanted to punish them. But remember, God needs to punish Judah, and especially Amaziah, for his worship of the idols of Edom. And so they go into battle. They meet at Beth-shemesh, and the men of Judah, of course, are defeated. And they have to flee in defeat. Jehoash is captured, Amaziah is captured by Jehoash and taken as a hostage. Then Jehoash marches down to Jerusalem with his hostage, destroys a large section of the wall of Jerusalem, so that now Jerusalem is left unprotected and exposed to attacks whenever Israel wants to come, as a way to teach them a lesson. And then he goes into the house of the Lord, and he takes the gold and the silver and other treasures from there, and other hostages who he will probably make into servants, and he takes them all, the money and the hostages, back to Samaria. The people of Judah, and specifically you can imagine, especially the people of Jerusalem, are not happy with King Amaziah. So what do? They conspire against him, and when he flees to Lachish, it's a city in the Philistines, that's how far he had to flee, the people follow him there and kill him. Now, we might look at that and say, do they have a right to kill him? Well, he was being wicked. He was worshiping idols. Yes. Yes, he was. But he wasn't forcing the people of Israel or Judah to worship idols. That's number one. And number two, even if someone is forcing us, we may disobey them, but we don't have the right to put them to death. Okay? We don't have the right to overthrow anyone who the Lord has put in charge over us or over anyone. And we may disobey them if they tell us to do something against the Lord, but we may not put them to death. And that's sinful for the men of Judah to do this, for his subjects to kill him. Okay? Told you to look up, right? Numbers 32, verse 23. Is that the last question on there? No? Well, then turn to it. Go back to Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, chapter 32, verse 23. There, the words of Moses are applicable here. But if ye will not do so, behold, ye have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. If you want to act in a sinful, foolish way, sure, today and tomorrow and a week and even a year afterwards, it may seem as though nothing. It may even come 20 or 30 years afterwards. But there will be payment. The Lord will be justified, and our sins will find us out. So I may commit a sin and say, I got away with it, and no one will ever know. And maybe a day, maybe a week, a month, a year, maybe 15, maybe 30 years later, the sin finally bubbles up. And it comes back to haunt us and get us. And then we will be punished. We will understand what we did was foolish. And that's what happens to Amaziah here. He thought he could worship the idols of Edom and nothing would happen. And he even lived for a while after it. But then the Lord finally took his life.